Well, hello there, and welcome to the Hollow Brig. It's a special facility here inside my flagship, and we have been reporting to you from the year 2282, where we are guarding a hole in time. And what's been going on is some of the computer servers at some of these networks and some of these TV providers have been becoming increasingly self aware, increasingly responsive, or increasingly insane, as is in the case of the Paramount Plus server, which has replicated Sonnequa Martin-Green. The replicant fled, as replicants tend to do, and has somehow found the hole in time which exits here in our side of the galaxy. Now, from what we can tell, you guys are in a strange and weird and new continuity, unlike anything that we here are all that familiar with. But there's an image on screen from threatened season 5 of Star Trek Discovery. But this interview from last June is my holiday special. It's scary and strange, with our pal Sonnequa Martin-Green, who we know from such great shows as The Walking Dead, where she did kill zombies with the best of them, for a long time. And when she was on that show, she could be fun. Her character was a little morose, but that show was dark by nature, and no one went there for the Star Trek kind of feelings. It was never a Star Trek kind of show, though I'd say you want to be in a Halloween mood, watch Cat's Paw from the original series. That's a Halloween-themed and flavored episode. At any rate, Sonnequa Martin-Green in this interview looks much more like this. And you can see she's making some great faces, and that's why I had to clip this one. Now, you heard it here first, Sonnequa Martin-Green is in fact attractive, but she makes some weird faces and some funny reactions in this interview, where she's anything but able to disclose information, but still has to go out and promote this show anyway. I feel a little bad for Sonnequa Martin-Green. And what happens is we've got from Digital Spy an interview with her here, and a lot of it is from the show, but then a lot of it is the interviewer sort of trying to get information from her, and she doesn't seem to like she wants to withhold the information, but she doesn't have anything to give them, and she's been through this 4 times now. She's just seen season 4. Season 5 is the implied threat out there. And she knows better than to commit. You can't jump into anything with 2 feet with these creators. And the people who originated this terrible Star Trek show, they went on to become the Rings of Power creators who just got fired. So, hot garbage sprung from feeble creatives, and now they've got this. So this stuff from last season, a bunch of explosions and out-of-context dialogue. Here we go with Sonnequa Martin-Green and Star Trek Discovery, Seasons 4 and 5.
Today, we seek to understand a threat like none our galaxy has faced before.
We have seen nothing but genocide up to this point. It's always been all or nothing, and everyone was going to die, so how could it be?
What exactly is this anomaly?
Asking what an anomaly is a self-contradiction question.
We're not certain.
That's the only answer you could give. Explosions.
Together, we will
or
meet
something.
this threat to our shared galaxy.
That part I thought was hilarious because it sounds like Independence Day. Let's just take that back for 1 second. Like, we've seen these people are real thieves, but
We will meet this threat to our shared galaxy.
we will be united in our common interest. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July. Give me a break. And we see some freaky out of context aliens redone in the new Trek style, including a new Trek Ferengi.
Understand the anomaly well enough to predict its path.
We don't understand the mystery well enough to say what it's going to do.
Billions more lives will be at risk.
Oh, it's the same thing every time with Star Trek Discovery. The burn, or whatever the phenomenon might be this given season, that gives rise to the mystery that exists only for the sake of being a mystery, and then goes on to become a series of contradictory events where people try to worm out of giving us any payoffs for these terrible shows from bad reboot. They're bad reboot productions, and they're called that for a reason. It's always stunningly dumb, They never give us any credit for our intelligence, and it can sometimes be just absolutely the worst. And I know what it's like when I show that show to my crew, right, guys? What is it like on the Star Trek Discovery night? Yeah, exactly. All right, calm down. Hey, calm down. I'm still the captain of this ship and the admiral of this fleet. But as you can see, Star Trek Discovery, not a favorite of the fans. But here we go, it's Sonnequa Martin-Green.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So is there anything you want the audience to see? And she's already said, yeah. Is there anything, big Star Trek moment? And this seems to be a theme in bad reboot shows. In Rings of Power, they were asked, is there a big Tolkien moment you're waiting for the audience to see? And here we're getting, is there a big Star Trek moment you can't wait for the audience to see? She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to show you the big one. It's kind of like she's waiting to see something, big and impressive.
Yeah. There's a few. We're very, very proud of season 4.
That's not a real answer.
We're proud of the entire show. We really are. But
I don't blame you for being proud of your work, and I bet you Sonnequa Martin-Green and the other people who act in this show did work hard, but they were poorly served by another stupid fucking story.
especially season 4, it was such a labor of love.
It was such a labor of love because all of your salaries were cut in half, and we saw reduced appearances by a lot of key crew members, and the trailer misrepresents what you really get because it shows the people who watch the show are familiar with, the characters that they've established. I'd hate to use that word, it's really not appropriate, but established, or at least showed us. No one has any establishment, but let's let Sonnequa Martin-Green continue.
And there was a lot going on, and so yeah, we're especially excited to share it with the youth.
So, is there a specific Star Trek moment? Yup, there's a lot, there's a bunch, there's a lot. We're excited, we can't wait to share it. And by the way, we found out that with Bad Reboot, exciting is a code word for horror. So very exciting is we were very horrified, and sharing is a code word for we're glad it's over. It's your problem now. My part's done.
UK, and with the other countries and territories that Paramount Plus is rolling out in.
Now, the reason why you had to wait is not because Paramount Plus couldn't roll out, but because Netflix won an arbitration case, which is the same as winning a lawsuit, to get rid of their stalker girlfriend, Star Trek Discovery, which has hung around and been refused to accept being fired since season 1 when it was initially rejected by Netflix. There's been behind-the-scenes litigation between Netflix and the Star Trek creators of Star Trek Discovery to get rid of this failed show. Star Trek Discovery didn't so much win as they established something that would be established even if it was chicken farmers buying eggs from one chicken farmer to another to a wholesaler. If you have a business arrangement, you have to allow it to play out. So Netflix had to allow this to play out. They canceled every year for 2 years. They never bought into Picard whatsoever. And then when they were finally allowed out of this, after their third cancellation, at which point they were freed from accepting season 4 of Star Trek Discovery and freed from any further financial obligations. And we've heard horror stories about shows being filmed off budget in the hallways by unpaid people. In violation of all sorts of rules from the Star Trek sets. But what's going on here is Star Trek Discovery season 4 sort of comes after 3 hard reboots on Netflix, a lawsuit to get rid of it, and then all Star Trek disappeared off of Netflix because the Netflix people didn't want any piece of Star Trek whatsoever, even the good stuff. Because now maybe the movies might be on there, and that is a separate entity, separate from the shows, but they got rid of all the shows because they don't want any link to the show. That's why they didn't take Picard. That's why they don't have Strange New Worlds. No one wants this new Trek garbage.
It's exciting because there for a hot second,
It's horrifying because we didn't think it was going to get distributed.
it seemed like, it was very discouraging and shocking because it didn't seem like you were going to be able
It was shocking because her own bosses didn't tell her about the lawsuit.
to enjoy it and join us. But now here we are, less than a year later, and
Join us, comrades.
we're here, and it's exciting.
Oh, exciting. Well,
We're here, and it's horrifying. Horrifying. Well,
Speaking of it being a labour of love, obviously a big chunk
speaking
of
of
it
the fact that nobody really thinks that you had money for 2 seasons,
during COVID,
Yes.
and I know that
we're going to make an excuse using the virus of unknown origins.
the writing team has spoken about so much of the shows, or season 4 especially, is like conceit being about what it means to live through something dramatic.
So again, they're talking about in our sci-fi we're gonna get modern commentary, and this is the Star Trek writers for you. They can't think outside their own lives. They're very selfish and very self-centered. Now, when it comes to Hollywood, I guess there's no penalty for failure, but this show has just been a drag and a disaster. And what's the high point of Star Trek Discovery? Having some prominent political people on it from our time, being a non-stop, boring and woke, a term which AOC herself has called destructive, a woke, bad piece of non-entertainment that advances no agenda, pandering to all along the way.
Not to be too grim. So I wondered what that was like for you on set, and was it cathartic at all?
Yeah,
to
the
kind
whole
of
thing about
live
the
through
COVID on set, was it great or what?
that as it was happening?
That was the best reaction. I want you guys to hear that again. Sonnequa Martin-Green with some great onomatopoeia, I believe it's called. I don't know how you would prescribe this.
Not to be too grim. So I wondered what that was like for you on
What
set,
was it
and was
like?
it cathartic at all to kind of
She's winding up for it here.
live through that as it was happening?
Shared galaxy.
Oh,
Beneath
I did.
Obviously, the show is coming to Paramount Plus in the UK this week. Is there a scene or a
Billions more liars.
Yeah.
yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a few. There's a
That's like sort of
entire show.
just proto-sexual a little bit there with the oh yeah. I love the way she
To
says
watch
it.
and kind of get to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a few.
This, I mean, I like this actress, but it's like,
Or a moment
if
that
I
you're,
could
like,
just
really
cue this
excited
up,
for
it's be like,
fans to-
hey baby, you want to go somewhere like where we can be alone? You know, like that's the way it's kind
Till
of
we
coming
understand
off.
the anomaly well enough to
They're terrible gish galloping intro, just notwithstanding. Sonnequa Martin-Green, when she gets the question here, it's funny the way it comes across, because I could again just try to cue it up. Hey Sonnequa, man, you look great tonight. Is there somewhere you and I could go where like no one else could see us, where we could be alone?
watch and kind of
Could
get
we?
to.
Oh
Could-
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, baby.
There's a few.
Yeah, there's a few places
We're
we could
very,
go?
very
All
proud
right.
of season 4 especially.
So anyway, it's kind of, I can't flaw her enthusiasm, but she may have been around the New Trek people a bit too long. So here's the next question about how it's a labor of love because Kuv. The writers have used this excuse a lot and spoken about it extensively, more than about their bad story that they hadn't figured out and couldn't explain. And the poor Pete fans, the concessions we made, we got social commentary instead of sci-fi fantasy. And Sonnequa Martin-Green
Live through
with the
that.
best reaction.
Well, I
That was
gotta
great, and that is the face she's making in the in the tile for this. Here we go.
Well,
That is fucking hilarious. I need to get this memed.
Live through that as it was happening.
How do you transcribe this?
well, I got to make sure that I say that we were all very aware that we were blessed.
Because I am very aware that my boss is an insane man who is going to start firing and punishing people if he doesn't hear exactly what he likes from his cast, because he is crazy and he is mean.
To be alive and healthy and working.
Especially with a boss like Commodore Kurtzman.
And on top of that, doing what we love, But it
You love to act. I don't think anyone loves this project.
didn't take away the challenges of working through COVID. And
Look, Tom Cruise made Top Gun Maverick during COVID, so I don't really want to hear any excuses from anybody.
dealing with everybody having tragedies in their lives.
This
my
part's
parents
sad. This part's sad. I do feel bad for her. Here we go.
having tragedies in their lives. My parents passed while we were shooting, and the one day apart, and so
I googled that. All I could find out was her father had pancreatic cancer. But hats off and a heartfelt "we're sorry" to Sonnequa Martin-Green. We don't have anything against you or this replicant that we have of you telling us about this story. It's sad.
That there was a lot of tragedy at the time, and not just in my life.
Yeah, I will give it this. A lot of us throw ourselves into our work or other things so that we can get away from tragedy and have a break from it. And better maybe to throw yourself into your work instead of, say, throwing yourself into drugs or alcohol.
So it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was a strain. But it was cathartic in a lot of ways.
It's hard to believe how it can be cathartic, except that she got to do something that helped her take her mind off a terrible tragedy. And I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what, Julian? Scan this replicant's brain, see if it's okay, see if it needs a little more sedatives. We've already learned a bunch here, and we're just about 25% of the way through this interview with the replicant of Sonnequa Martin-Green.
Because we were together, we were in it together.
It's
and
nice that the
we
cast
knew
are friends.
that it was important, and we knew that we were blessed to be there. And so,
In the face of so much tragedy on a worldwide scale with the coup, yeah, I understand.
we really leaned on each other,
Well, you're not supposed to. Well, you're supposed to maintain social distance, but okay.
It's like it brought us together. We were sort of clinging to each other in that way.
Right.
And I hope that it reads.
Really?
And I think it does. I really do. And
It reads like it was shot during COVID. It really does. You can tell. You can tell it was shot during COVID. You can tell that it's of an even lower quality than what came before. What episodes of it I was forced to watch.
now that we are here and can share it, I'm really excited to see what the feedback will be. Because that was what was so sad about it too. Because we were so excited about.
I think what was sad about it was that no one wants this show, and that one season was broken into two and done at half price and on stolen budgets from other shows, while you were trying to go forth and long with this Strange New Worlds show, which sucked ass, by the way.
Season 4, so proud to share it, and then felt like we were sort of clipped from doing that.
Share means glad it's over. So let's translate Sonnequa Martin-Green's comments into English. She didn't know what the feedback will be, because that was what was so sad about it, because they were so horrified about season 4 and just wanted it to be over with, and then it's sort of like we were just kind of clipped from doing that. I don't know what she means, except she was just trying to wrap up her sentence with a upbeat sounding word salad, and then the British guy thanks her and tells her he appreciates it, and it feels like he does read the hopelessness in the first around the world. And Sonnequa Martin-Green now is starts to chime in.
How do you navigate uncertainty, that kind of
This interviewer overtalks his subjects, which is not the greatest.
threat that is wholly unpredictable.
And the solidarity, right, that you're talking about, the crew coming together, that's kind of like where it comes together. Well, speaking of...
All right, so talk about coming together, which is somewhat suggestive.
Of some of the tragedy of the series. Obviously, I think people will be, like I was for a big chunk of it, heartbroken to see Book and Michael sort of ripped apart, and then
They say Book and Michael down on the headline for Sonnequa Martin-Green talks Star Trek Discovery Season 5, COVID, Burnham, and Booker's relationship. So they don't even have the interest to keep it straight. So they don't know and care, and neither do I. I've come to hate this show.
And then, but brought together again at the end. Right. So I would be remiss not to ask you.
Right, how these two characters that were driven apart, that seemed like they should be together, end up back together before we had a chance to notice they're apart?
Oh, thank you, for that question.
We have learned that all bad reboot people thank you for the question when they are stuck.
I think that it's very much what they say in that last moment they have together. In season 4.
What exactly did they say? It seems like it was important.
It's very much that Quajon,
That sounds like a very Quajon. I bet you he was pretty important. I wonder if you could, elaborate your point with some information.
Quote, which I guess I won't say.
Wait, you just led us down that garden path about this important quote, but you won't say it? I mean, what are we supposed to figure out from this?
But it's very much that. I get the sense that these two, that they're always going to be in each other's space somehow.
I feel the plot armor, says Sonnequa Martin-Green.
They're connected at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that for Burnham, Book
Right.
represents. He's come to represent a great deal of things.
Now, Mikey Spock is calling the character Book as well, so I think Book is the character's name. But the point here is Mikey Spock has gone on crazy tangents where she's misidentified how to use props. We all saw her holding a phaser on herself, so to speak, when she was supposed to be fighting, holding the prop backwards in a way that would be harmful to the user, were a phaser to be a real thing.
For her. He represented the new future for the longest time.
He represented the new future for the longest time, but we couldn't figure out what that meant or pay off that mystery box, so we refreshed that, and now the new mystery box for him was...
But then this actualization that has happened in Burnham was...
The actualization is simply persisting and not going away. She has not changed since episode 1. She is still the same angry, contemptuous, smug, intolerable, intolerant, hateful, murderous, immoral, idiotic, hunch-following, lucky person ever. Luckiest person ever. Never, ever, ever wrong on the craziest of crazy hunches. It doesn't matter if there's a mathematical or scientific component. That's the beauty of fucking math. This terrible show doesn't care. Her character has a season-long hunch. They break down and do what she says, and problem solved. That has been every season of Star Trek Discovery in a nutshell. And she's saying now the actualization has happened in Burnham, and there has been no actualization. She has not changed. She has been rewarded for being right over and over.
Certainly because of the influence of Book. And I'm grateful to him for that as
Oh, well, I'm sure he's grateful to you.
As Burnham, just as he's grateful to me for what I've influenced in him.
See how I knew that was coming? It's like I've had to watch this before.
So yeah, those two are always, I think, gonna have something to do with each other.
A bit of endgame, aren't they? I think that.
Okay, so yeah, Book and Burnham, they're together. Season 3, there isn't much, blah, 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 blah.
You see the impact on either
Yeah.
which is really lovely to watch. So
This guy's talking as though the show has depth and saying that they showed an inverse point, and Sonnequa Martin-Green just like glad-handedly waves away the question, like, yeah, it was brilliant. Like he's just like it's a fan theory or something, and she's like shocked to hear it for the first time, so she just doesn't touch it and lets it go. And then he's like smugly takes that Ali Griffiths here kind of mistakes that for some sort of validation, and he just keeps going.
Speaking about the future, is there anything you can tease? Obviously, we're here to talk about season 4, but is there anything you can tease about season 5?
Oh God, season 4 was a horror story, and season 5 is just it's a threat. It's out there. It's as a threat.
Not even a tiny bit.
Not a tiny bit.
Oh, is that real frustration or faux frustration? I gotta give it to Sonnequa Martin-Green. Charming, funny, consistently making great faces. She is not taking this too seriously. She's been through the mill with this show. She can't wait for it to be over either, I'm sure.
I can say that it's going to be refreshing.
No, that's just they've said that every season. They said that about Strange New Worlds, and if you kept track of the situation by the midpoint of that season, your captain was like like a Viagra salesman. Really, he was like Mitt Romney from a few years back. Like, hey, why not, reconsider and go a more reasoned course? And then just every other character was a liar. And that's a shame because the other characters were panderingly insulting. So what they did was they took members of all these different communities they claimed to represent, and they just made absolute liars of them.
It's going to be invigorating.
Because the show's been lifeless and dull up to this point, without exception.
And I think it's going to be...
Yeah?
What's the word I'm looking for?
Exciting?
Well, I'll just say lovely. Like, I think
I have no words.
it's going to be lovely.
That's good.
In the true
Sounds like
sense
quite
of the word.
refreshing after some of season 4.
Yeah, right. Just
Threat has been
where
detected.
art was imitating life.
Yeah.
Was imitating
I
art.
don't know
and,
if art was imitating
there were a lot
life,
of-
was imitating
lot of
art at
parallels there.
all on
Well,
that
speaking of,
one,
like,
or if
the
there
loveliness,
were
I
a
think
lot of
part of what I
loveliness.
attached to about,
This
about
is
Discovery is
this guy.
the
This interview
optimism
is
at the heart of the show. I
officially
think, like, there's such a Star Trek thing anyway, but I think
completely off
Discovery
the
really
rails. Let's just take that back a little bit. Our interviewer is hyper theorizing a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, suddenly we're back to trying to use the word art in connection with Star Trek. So she says it says it's gonna be quite refreshing after some of the stuff we've seen.
Right. Just where art was imitating life.
Yeah.
Was imitating art, and yeah.
Well, she's just doesn't know what else to say.
Yeah, there were a lot of parallels there.
What she's really parallels means I cannot divulge the fact that I saw it as really confusing and boring. She knows this is a bad, confusing, and boring show now. She's been in a good show. She knows the difference.
Well, speaking of like the loveliness, I think part of what
Part of what he likes to attach to Discovery is the optimism at the heart of this show, which I find
Really
to
like
be an insane thing to say.
on
And
that,
let's hear
even
what
in the
this
kind of
guy has to
darkness.
say about this.
Is that
Is it even in the kind of darkness? There's something. Are you guys conscious
And if
of,
not, kind of what
of
is-
what a great and uplifting? What is the
Hope
sort of
people take away
message you
from
hope
the
people
life
take
of
away? And let's hear from Sonnequa
I think that's
Martin-Green.
exactly what we hope people take away from it, and that's
Your question is exactly the answer.
exactly what we believe as well.
So since that was, in fact, what she said to it, let's hear a little bit more of the question. And this question just couldn't be more, like, I don't know if it's a well-constructed journalistic question.
sort of message you'd hope people take away from the like kind of arc of it?
I think that's exactly what we hope people take away from.
I mean, really, still not enough to have context. Let's see if we can't fix that.
The show, I think, like, there's such a Star Trek thing anyway, but I think Discovery really like
What is a Star Trek thing at this point after they've just bastardized the meaning?
focuses on that, even in the kind of darkness. Is that something you guys are kind of conscious of in the show? And if not, kind of what is the sort of message you'd hope people take away from the like kind of arc of it?
So a long and complex question about, it's an optimistic show, and don't you think it's an optimistic show, and what an optimistic show, and what do you think they'll take away from this arc of optimism? And she's like, right, what you said, because she's as confused as me, I think.
I think that's exactly what we hope people take away from it, and that's exactly what we believe
Right on, Chief.
as well. And it's something that we had to be very adamant about in the beginning,
What?
because people, we didn't know what it was going to be like to really
We had no plan.
have the darkness and dig into it a little bit more.
How could you not have been ready for darkness unless this was you're talking about before season 1, like 9 years ago?
Than any other iteration, because we are hyper
Seriously, how long has it been since Star Trek Discovery season 1?
serialized, and we essentially remember what happened yesterday. And
This show is so unaware of what happened yesterday, it's not even funny. It's just ridiculous. In fact, the idea of continuity in that writer's room,
Threat has been detected.
yeah, there is no continuity in the writer's room for Star Trek. Discovery. That is absolutely insane nonsense to say something like that. But, you know, I don't know. I'll ask my security chief. What do you think?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, again, you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're Chief Arnie. Now, what's the deal?
This is an arrest.
Right?
You're under arrest. I want to ask you a bunch of questions. So I want to have them answered immediately.
I like that. That seems to have got her on her toes. Let's see what Sonnequa Martin-Green has to say in this amazing and somewhat stunning, quite honestly, interview. Let's run with it.
We started in the middle of a war, and so, you know, war is war, and you got to be real about it. There's the authenticity of our iteration.
All right, that is crazy that they were real about a war in space in a show that was like, you know, science fantasy more than science fiction, but, you know, sci-fi for sure. But, you know, in that battle in Star Trek Discovery, no ship maneuvers.
Makes it so that things can get quite gritty. But
we saw gritty Star Trek. It was called Deep Space Nine, and it was a good show. Keep going.
But what we have always maintained is that the fight for the future is what you get to see. You get
Where are you going with this?
to see what it costs, you know, because
There has been almost no cost to you, and people who die come back right away most of the time.
if we are to be inspired by this and sort of build
How about being entertained, Sonnequa? Seriously.
this kind of life for ourselves and our society, we have to know that it's difficult.
So we're getting modern social commentary in our escapism. Thanks a lot, guys, for fundamentally misunderstanding your own jobs. And I don't blame Sonnequa Martin-Green. The creators of this show will not go out there. They will not go out there and explain this. They cannot answer questions about writing. So they send out poor Sonnequa Martin-Green, and she does her best. And I'm telling you, I have a collection of maybe 7 minutes of talking points from Alex Kurtzman, always highly controlled, always in control of the questions, always answering questions he himself has written, asked mostly by Will Wheaton.
And that it's a fight that doesn't stop. It's a fight that is fought every day.
All right, so we're getting a call to activism in our time from Star Trek. How horrible.
And I think that is what is so optimistic about it, is that you see what it costs.
So it's a painful story of loss and suffering. That's what makes it optimistic.
And you then can kind of have a map to follow in a very small way.
It's a show that's taking place hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe, 500 years further than regular Star Trek in the future, and you're saying that this is a map for change today in some small way. Yeah. By the way we deal with the Romulans. How pretentious.
In whatever small way, you can see
It would have to be a pretty small way.
an example of it, and like, oh,
An example of how plot armor will save me from all my problems and how I won't have to change.
so that's what it looks like
Yeah.
to live in a world where things are truly equal.
Equal? It's a vengeful world where the women are large and in charge and the men are subservient and stupid, and we have not seen one man do anything with any real agency at all.
Oh, that's what it takes.
It's
You
an
know,
active rebuild.
Takes like 3 women for every 1 man on screen to offset the toxicity of simply having males and being locked into Captain Pike. Oh, I have to imagine the only episode of the original Star Trek the creators of the new Star Trek would have ever enjoyed would probably be the Turnabout Intruder. And I mean, we're getting almost to the end of this Sonnequa Martin-Green interview. She's fine. I mean, don't hate Twitter. She's still a pretty cool person, honestly, despite this. This is not something she's doing because she wants to come out there and lie to anybody. And she stayed away from going after the fans, something her bosses do for her. And it's sad that they set up this kind of atmosphere. And she's talking about active rebuilding of the Star Trek future, so I don't know.
Building, right? That's what's
Oh, it's the interviewer yammering on.
so great about that jump in season 3 is like we skipped.
What's so great about the lawsuit that was going to end us after season 4 was that we reset and fundamentally changed the show in one final desperate bid to get Netflix to change their mind, and it didn't work. But it was brilliant story move, really.
It's the part where, okay, what does it mean to do something new? What does it mean to build something new?
We had to go into the future from Into the Future to see the future, because the far future is no longer the far future. Sonar in space, people.
So finally, my final 2 things were, is there some sort of iconic piece of Star Trek ephemera that you would love to see Discovery tackle? There are some big questions around, like the ball.
Is there some piece of Star Trek ephemera? What the hell? That is a PSAT word that means transitory, fleeting, passing, short-lived, momentary. But let's let this guy finish up. Wow, what a nebulous word to use. See what I did there?
That we haven't kind of encountered. Is there anything that you'd love to see the
Is there anything Star Trek-y about this Star Trek show that you want the Star Trek fans to see?
show have a peek at?
Well, I love crossover, the idea of
So no, but we'll be crossing over with the other shows.
crossover episodes. Like I would love that. I would cross.
You're separated in times and dimensions from the other Star Treks. Is this supposed to get us, is this like beating us up a little bit to get us ready for what would have to be a mashup of shows if they do get that Star Trek 4 movie out there? The movie that's been announced at least 8 times.
Crossover with anyone. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, come
on over. Let's cross over, Sonnequa.
let's figure this out. You know, that's what I
We'll figure it out.
would really love to see.
Would we get
especially as we're expanding.
Would we get an?
Oh God! And then he just goes on to ask her if she's gonna be in cartoons, and she has to act like she loves that, and like who wouldn't love it? It's money for nothing almost at this point. What does she got to do? But just kind of what I'm doing right now, and maybe even in this casual environment. And that's it from our pals here at Digital Spy, who got 2,300 views and 48 upvotes on this interview with the very nice and very friendly, but very, very locked in and very, very frustrated in some ways replicant of Sonnequa Martin-Green, who just has to go out there and promote new Star Trek. And what can she say? There's nothing left to say. I mean, we heard it all in the beginning of the interview with Sonnequa Martin-Green, where we heard this year's Star Trek, like Gish Gallop nonsense. Listen to this stuff that we're supposed to play. This is the next season. I mean, we've seen this season, but this is what they told us.
Today, we seek to understand a threat like none our galaxy has faced before.
They have faced extermination over and over and over.
What exactly is this anomaly?
What exactly is this anomaly? I mean, look up the word anomaly. That is the stupidest question. At any rate, that has been our look at Star Trek Discovery. Another bad reboot, bad robot, secret hideout creation from Commodore Kurtzman. I'm your pal, Admiral Teag. I hope you'll find time to like this video and consider following this channel. Every chat's a super chat here. Every comment will be answered, and I'm going to be uploading this in just a little while, so I'll be talking to you around the internet soon, and I hope you all have a really good day and a good week to come.